Welcome to Pragmatic Talks, a podcast and video series where we discuss startups, contemporary digital product development, modern technologies, and product management. I am Wiktor Żolnowski, a CEO of Pragmatic Coders, the first choice software development partners for startup founders. Today, together with Darek Mozgowoj, one of our best product managers, we are going to discuss the Scrum framework. You will learn more about the Scrum itself, but what is more important, we will help you understand how Scrum can help you build digital products in the startup environment. Welcome at Pragmatic Talks. Today we are going to discuss Scrum. What is Scrum and how startups could use Scrum to their everyday work. For today's episode, I invited Darek Mozgowoj, who is one of our product owners. So welcome, Darek.
Welcome.
It's great that you join me today. So Darek, you've been starting as a software developer a couple of years ago. Then you've been a Scrum Master, aside of software developer role.
That's correct.
And today you are a product owner.
Yes, that's correct.
So you had a chance to actually work in a Scrum in different roles, in all of the roles, take a look at it from various perspectives. So this is exactly why I invited you for this discussion, because I believe that your insights might be very, very, very valuable for everyone. The first question is if you could describe Scrum in a very short way for someone who never heard about it. And so what is Scrum in a very short form?
Okay, to me, the Scrum is like a kind of mental model which allows teams and people learn quickly and in an environment which is which have a high risk, and these iterations and the Scrum itself helps to mitigate the risks and provide a value.
Okay, I believe we'll talk about it a little bit more later. So Scrum is a mental model for you. So how does it work? So is there any rules?
Yeah, in principles, the Scrum based on something. This is the framework as called. The framework consists of important things which define the boundaries, and these things like pillars, the 3 pillars in Scrum, and values. Mm-hmm. Five values for Scrum. And that's the basis, most important to understand what that means, pillars, and what the values actually means in the context of building the products. Mm-hmm. So that's all.
So there are 3 pillars and how many values?
And 5 values.
5 values. Okay, let's maybe start with them.
So when I learned Scrum, and when I am teaching now people using Scrum, the beginning actually is about the values, because what I believe, when we understand the values, when we know what the value means for the product development, then the Scrum boundaries actually create themselves. Mm-hmm. So if you keep the values in your mind and you use the values and try to make these values alive in the teams, then everything else becomes very simple. Mm-hmm. So and just to list these values, it's like commitment, courage, openness, respect. Yeah. So if we think about those values, all of them somehow committed to the good team operation. Mm-hmm. And if we don't have these values, that's a common problem actually in the market. That's people think that it's enough to use kind of mechanical thinking, using mechanical Scrum, like do some events and have some artifacts, mm-hmm. But they don't think about the values. And most of them, when they use it in this way, they end up complaining about Scrum. It's not working. And the root cause of this not working Scrum is because the values and the pillars are not there. Mm-hmm. So it is very important to understand and teach people to use it. And this, I believe, one of the main point of the work of the Scrum Master in the team, to understand the values and looking for the misunderstanding of these values in the team, mm-hmm. Individual members of the team.
We'll get back to the Scrum Master role as well. But you mentioned also something very, very important, that Scrum is for teams.
Yes.
It's not for a random group of people who are just developing something, but you need to have a team to actually work in Scrum. So what should be the first, Scrum or the team? Or it doesn't matter, or maybe if you already have a team, it's much easier to implement Scrum. And if you have a group of people, Scrum may help you with turning them into the team.
Then I believe both ways could be possible. When we start from the Scrum, so we know how the Scrum works, and we try to invite the people, and then we can teach them about the values and pillars and the methodology. Then they can create a team. But if you have already a team, it's also possible, I think. But the team could have already have some principles which they discover or they implemented in the work they're doing. Sometimes they are against the Scrum.
So they have some kind of culture, team culture that they already have, and it may be okay.
Yeah. So then the role of the Scrum Master and the team is to explain them how to fit into the new environment. Because as the Scrum Guide teach us, that's if we do something which we don't do something which Scrum describes, it's not Scrum anymore. So if people do not implement the values and then believe the values, have some different culture, this is not a Scrum anymore.
So just a short disclaimer that Scrum Guide is a 16-page long.
Yes.
I don't even want to call it a book. I guess it's a document that actually describes what is Scrum. So everyone who wants to learn more about Scrum, I strongly recommend you to visit scrumguides.org, and you can download your copy of this Scrum Guide document. I believe it's translated to more than 50 languages, so you can do this in whatever language you speak. But I strongly recommend to download the English version because that was the original one, and there are a couple of words that have a different meanings when translated. For example, commitment or responsibility or things like this. Like in different languages, those words have different meanings, and there are different words that they are translated to, and sometimes the correct meaning may be lost. So aside of reading the Scrum Guide in your language, please also try to read it in English in the original version. That is the most correct one, I believe so. Okay, so you mentioned already the values of the Scrum. What are the three pillars?
When we're teaching people, always there is like a picture of a house where the values are fundaments and the pillars are the pillars that they keeping the roof. And so the pillars are very important, and they growing or rising from the values. And the three pillars are transparency, inspection, and adaptation. So all these three things we can discuss further what that means actually. They building the cycles in a Scrum which allow us to mitigate the risk and deliver value.
I remember when I was teaching people how to work in Scrum, I was always explaining the inspection and adaptation through the air conditioner, like we have right here. That air conditioner works in a way that you set a proper temperature and it constantly measure it and adjust to achieve the goal that is the target temperature. But without the transparency, like for example, here we have this lamp that is putting light on us, and it also generates heat. So actually our transparency is interrupted by that, and the air conditioner is working pretty hard right now and cooling much more than it should be because the lamp is increasing the temperature. So this is why transparency is very important to actually correctly inspect and adapt in Scrum.
That's correct.
Okay, so we already mentioned Scrum Guide. I've recently heard from some person who worked for one of our clients that for him Scrum Guide is or the Scrum at all is just a suggestion. What do you think about it?
it's kind of, but I'm very careful. I'll be very careful with this word suggestion, because we not suggest do a couple of things and not do a couple of other things, which is in Scrum Guide. We kind of have to implement everything to be sure that we are on correct in Scrum. But Scrum doesn't do it explicitly to show us what to do. It is like do the refinement or do the kind of management of the backlog, but it's not saying how to do it. And this give us like a space for implement the tools, whatever we want, and so it's like a flexible. That means that the Scrum is not actually the same from the different teams. They can develop some kind of tools and processes which fits the culture for these teams exactly.
But they are still working in some frames.
In some frames, and those frames have to be like fulfilled. They cannot be like we keep only third part of this field. It have to be everything, and we always try to help people to imagine how it works. If you have only part of it, and then probably they don't see the problems in other parts. And Scrum is very sensitive framework. So if you don't do like the transparency well, it hits you in adaptation and in inspection and so on. So it's not possible to do like a suggestion. It's like the guideline. Yeah.
I believe it might be a good idea to record another episode only about the what will not work if you are not doing Scrum correctly, and what could happen in such a situation, because I believe that we seen a lot in our history of working with our clients and working on the inside projects where Scrum sometimes doesn't work because it actually haven't been a Scrum. Okay, so we have values, we have pillars, we know that the Scrum is framework. So what else, and what how does it combine together?
Okay, so yeah, in the Scrum we have kind of periods in which we work and deliver and learn, and that these cycles we call sprints, and in the sprint at the end we deliver something which is available or can be released or is a piece of the product, very important for our end users, for example, or our clients. But this cycle, every next cycle we just learning more and more. So we are much better in delivering product. So actually for me, entire cycle in a Scrum such as this learning, this is a learning process which have some special abilities to do it quickly, and this framework just allow us to make it to position it very in very good manner. So you don't need to actually remember it. It help you to remember things, how to do it, but you have to just commit yourself to these values, to these processes, and then Scrum help you to deliver it better each time. So this is the learning cycle for me.
So actually Scrum is based on the empirical approach.
Yes.
When we spoke before, you name it as an empirical decision-making process.
Yes.
So okay. So why does it matter, for example, for startups, but not only for startups, for any kind of product development, to actually use this kind of empirical decision-making process? Why we shouldn't make a decision based on our assumption, for example?
Yeah, because it's very easy to be misleading in delivering the product, because we sitting here delivering, so coding and thinking about the product, but there is a client, there is a user out there, which is at a lot of users which have different perspectives, and this is a market on which these users are living and existing. So everything there is quite complicated, and at the beginning we don't understand. We have some hypotheses that it should work. So every time we do something, we testing our assumptions. So this is learning cycle. We deliver it to the clients, to the market, and we looking for feedback. And this feedback allow us to improve the product or change the direction on which the product should go. And that is important for startup, because startups mostly based on that they can do quickly things. And the quicker we learn in startup, then I believe there is a higher chance to success. So that startups should be highly thinking about using Scrum. I believe that's something they support them definitely.
Sure. So you actually described one of the two learning loops in Scrum. Like the first one is that you described that we have this learning about the product and how the product is evolving, and we can incrementally, because it's very important that you mentioned that every iteration, every cycle is called a sprint in Scrum. We want to have something that is at least potentially reusable, some increment of a product. Scrum is also incremental, it's iterative and incremental. So at least one increment, or the increment is actually usually built with a couple of changes that could be released together or separately, so we can release a couple of times. It doesn't mean that we have to release only once per sprint.
Yes.
But this cadence, this iteration ends with the sprint review, where we can actually discuss together with stakeholders, with the clients, sometimes we can invite users of the product and learn what they think about the changes, the increment that we are going to release or we just released, because it could happen during the sprint. And we can learn from that and learn what could we do or what should we do next, not even in the very next iteration, but maybe next in the future, etc. So this is this one learning cycle, this one learning loop that we have. The second one is that the team can actually, based on this user's feedback, based on some data from the market, from the product itself, the team, and also the data, for example, about their velocity or capacity, how did they work, how much work they performed during the sprint, how hard it was, what they discovered, if there was any surprises during the sprint, something that they did predict, the team can also adjust the process.
Yeah.
And this is the second learning
loop. Yeah. It's just, when you look at when you're trying to draw how the process looks like, it seems like this second loop is smaller, but for me they're equal in value. And the second loop, like as you mentioned, it's about the processes. Actually, all the things we're doing to delivering this product as this increment is a kind of process. And yeah, we can understand better, as we already discussed, we can understand better the product, the market, but at the way to delivering it, we can find that something is not working perfect for us. So we can deliver it better, quicker, more efficient, I would say. And that's the second loop is about. How to improve our work to this other process will be much faster, smoother. And there is like a famous graph. When Scrum is working well, each iteration we going better and better in both process and value we deliver. So that like accumulated value at the end is much higher than in other methodologies which are used on the market.
Yeah, so those are those two main learning loops. There is a third one, the smallest one, like a daily loop, like that actually the single question that we, maybe not the single one, but the question that we can answer thanks to this loop is, are we going in the right direction? Are we going to achieve our goal for this iteration? And that happened during the daily Scrum. Okay, so we have this three loops. Let's get back to the first one, the product one. So sprint review is an event at the end of every sprint, not at the very end, the first of the events at the end of the sprint. So what happened during the sprint review?
So review, as I said, is like the final event on Scrum. During this event, everyone, hopefully, the team members and the client, and hopefully, and will be very nice to have the end users, comes to see the increment, so the change, and they can decide at this meeting if the change is valuable, if this change help the user achieve the goals in the way they want. That is one of the parts. So the team looking for feedback, looking how the users or clients using the tool, so they can think about maybe improve something. so they can like inspect what they did, and they can adapt, so they can add something to the backlog, which can improve further the product. And also there is other part of like inspection and transparency, where the team discussing with the business actually the next steps. If something changed on the market, sometimes team doesn't have this information. This information there is on business side, and the business understand maybe are closer to the strategy and changes on the market. So it's a good point to and good time to ask if the next moves, next steps we are gonna implement are in line with the strategy, have something be changed. So this is kind of like asking question about the agility. If we can do the change now, if something changed which push us to do some changes on our side as well. And that's also review is about.
Okay, so one more thing here to add. The way I always describe review is that I always try to show people that there is a difference between demo and review.
Yeah, there is a common mistake. Yeah, because
common mistake.
Yeah, the demo is like sometimes I heard that the team's showing like the presentations what they did.
PowerPoint. Yeah.
PowerPoint. Oh my God. We did so very nice pictures. Everyone said, "Oh, it's fantastic."
Does it different from showing Jira backlog or sprint backlog in Jira? Like for me, it's like the same. If the team shows only Jira during the sprint review, it's exactly like they could actually put it on the slide in the so it doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
So how should it look like?
It should be like as I said, when this business representatives comes and the user comes, we actually would like to show them, not like show them as they see. We would like to use them.
Use and discuss it. Yeah, like actually, what I always tell to our teams is to send to all the stakeholders who are invited to send some information before the sprint review. Even send them some instructions so they could actually use the product, use the increment, notice on their own before the sprint review what have changed. And be prepared for this to actually during the sprint review, which is for example for 2 weeks long sprint, it's just 45 minutes. Sorry, we have only 1.5 hours to actually make the most probably very important business decision, like the decisions what we are going to do next in the next iteration. So you can imagine that's 2 weeks long iteration of a team, let's say of 5 developers, product owners, and Scrum Masters. It's a lot of money. So this is a point in time where we actually need to make a decision what they will be working next, and we need to assure that they will not waste this time and waste this money. Like every hour of a 7 people team or 6 people team is worth like a lot of money, especially for startups who are usually short on money.
Definitely, and that's why it's very important to discuss. This is on, as I said, 1.5 hour, but there's a lot of things to show.
Yeah,
we have to look at the product, the increment, how it changed, how the people using it. We have to discuss some kind of points which change our strategy. So it's a lot of things, and it's a very good idea to send this information before, especially as you mentioned previously, that we can deliver not only at the end of the sprint, we can deliver it continuously, like during the sprint, and actually each small increment which fall in the at the end in the entire increment can be tested, and we can receive a feedback much easier. So it's not surprise at the end of the sprint that something have to be changed.
Yeah, sometimes it's even good to actually ask for feedback before we release something to production. And it might be good to ask the stakeholders if this is something they actually wanted to be delivered before we deliver it. Because then, of course, with the current technology level and development methods, reversing all the changes is usually not very difficult, and we can do this, but still. Sometimes it's a waste, and especially from the user's perspective, it might be considered as some kind of problem if we release something and then revert it back. Okay, so sprint review is mainly about the product, about the increment. This is the discussion, and this is a decision-making point in time in the sprint. We make this decision based on the data that we collected during the sprint. We can make it based on the feedback that we have, etc. And we actually take a look at the product backlog.
Yes.
We'll discuss what the product backlog is in a moment. And what next? The very next meeting that is actually done by the event, not a meeting, that is done performed by the team itself without the stakeholders. It's sprint retrospective.
Yes.
What's happened there?
Yeah, the sprint retrospective is about the second loop, about processes and people. So when we receive the feedback, we already know that we doing great or not, and maybe we have already some clues about our work during the sprint. So then there is the point in time before we begin the new loop of the sprint. Then we can sit together, the team representative sit together, and they discuss what can be improved, what was wrong maybe, what was good, because it's also good to maintain the good practices. And during this discussion, this is like run table, everyone have voice to set something. We decide what is the most important to change in our processes to be better in the next iteration. So yeah, at the end of this, the outcome from this retrospective is like action points, very well described, and with assignee already, what have to be done, and who will do these things to improve the processes next time. And when, yeah. And so we know exactly what happened. We can measure it in the next iteration, if it change happened, and if the outcome expected is correct or not. So we can also then adapt to the situation. And that is very important. And when I'm teaching people Scrum, we often reflect this into the education system. When people get, let's say, the score at the end of an exam, the score means like A+ or 4, whatever measure it. But then there is no loop about how we can improve the learning process to deliver.
Why would you like to improve from A+?
yeah. Or maybe A+ is not, but if someone get a B, C, or D, whatever, yeah, then what we can improve, what was wrong in the process that we received such low score. And then usually it's like in the education system, we're going further and we have this lack of knowledge with us to the next level, so they're not helping at all.
Yeah, so later it's even worse. I believe it's pretty the same in the software development process. When we are not learning, or when we are not improving, these problems that we have from the very beginning, they accumulate, and then after some time they are even worse, they're even more costly.
Yes.
So learning about them, and that's a bunch of different things that could happen and that we could learn, like starting from the communication within the team, the communication with the stakeholders, with people outside of the team, the tools that we are using that are problematic, the methods that we are using, maybe the quality that we are delivering is not correct, and maybe, for example, we are not testing enough, or we are collecting some kind of technological debt, like decreasing the quality because we are moving too fast, and that's increasing without monitoring it, without learning from the data, from everything what we observed during the sprint. We are actually collecting all of these problems, and they are increasing with time, and later on they might be very, very costly to solve, or actually very, very costly to maintain, because still we will have to deal with them when trying to deliver some value.
And I see also that there is no a direct relation between results and you observe some problem, and you actually don't know what is the root cause of this problem. And at the beginning, there is, that's not many hypotheses you can test and you can find, but when you accumulate all these problems, after a while, it's so big, so you cannot track it at all, and you don't know where to dig in to find the root cause. So that's why the Scrum give us this tool, like a retrospective, to do it like regularly, and we can regularly fix the problems and adapt ourselves to the process. That's the correct way, I believe.
Okay, so perfect. So we had the sprint review. almost at the end of the sprint. Then very next was the sprint retrospective. What sprint review, we discussed the product, the increment, we decided what we are going to work on next, maybe in next iteration, or in the very next iteration, or maybe in the next couple of iterations as well. Then we had the sprint retrospective, where we discuss the process and we decide what we need to improve, what we want to improve, what we will improve in the next iteration. And that's the end of the sprint. And that's the moment that the sprint ends. And immediately after the sprint ends, the next sprint starts. Yes. And it starts with
planning,
with sprint planning. Yes. So how this kind of event look like?
This is very important because it's the beginning. If we do not plan well, then it will hit us in the entire sprint. So after all of these ending meetings like the review and the retrospective, we accumulate some knowledge. We know we have an action points which been delivered on our retrospective, and we have some feedback, and maybe we already adapt the backlog on the review when we get the feedback from the clients and from the users. So now we have a lot of knowledge which give us some opportunity to adapt. We know what we can do next because we discuss it in the business on the review. And then, of course, there is another meeting which need to be done, but it is done during the sprint. We'll maybe discuss it later, which can improve our backlog. But assuming that our backlog is in a good state, we understand what we need to do. And then on the planning, simply the team and product owner knows what needs to be done in the next step. So they know about the goal, the business goal. The product owner comes with this need which need to be addressed to the team, and then together with the team looking at the backlog, what is in the backlog, and they can decide what we can pick from this backlog to the next sprints which help us to achieve the goal. Of course, sometimes it's like what in a higher, very general perspective, the goal is too big and have to be defined, have to be negotiated to adjust to the current state of the backlog and the knowledge of the team. But then it is like this negotiation going on. We decide what can be done, how we can do it. At the planning, we also think about all the blockers, all the things which can change the perspective during the sprint. Let's say someone say, "Oh, sorry, I forget to tell you that in the middle of sprint I'm taking my holidays, so I'm off. My capacity is null at this time, so we cannot deliver everything what we thought at the beginning." So all these insights are very important for the team to decide what to do, and simply entire team need to understand what they want to achieve, how they want to achieve it. So everyone are on the same place and they can help each other because they are multi-functional team. They are cross-functional team, and they need to understand it the same way. If not, then if someone is missing, then like team is blocked, they cannot deliver at all anything in a sprint.
That means that they are not cross-functional.
Yeah.
Simply. So the team actually have to decide and actually prepare the plan for the sprint. And the plan is what will be done and how we are going to perform it. And what I've seen many times is that teams usually stop on working on deciding, okay, we need to do this and that. Okay, we have sprint planned. That's not a plan. Like deciding what we are going to do is not the plan yet. Like we need to decide, okay, so how we are going to do. We need to discuss it more in details and decide, okay, so for example, for implementing this feature, this increment, we will need to change the front end of the application, change the mobile apps, maybe add some API calls, maybe change some database. We'll have to maybe do some research on that, maybe do some design or something else. So every aspect of this development of this feature need to be planned. Like it will be perfect if we will already decide how much it could take, how much time it could take, who will perform the work. But still, like I wouldn't recommend to over planning here, because we may get to the point where, you know, like we have a sprint plan that's okay, you have a capacity of 80 hours, so 78 hours of your time is already planned till the end of a sprint. That's that's not the point. But still, like deciding who can do that, and then maybe even at the end of the planning or during the planning, we can, for example, see that we have one rockstar developer who is involved in every item that we are going to work, and actually this is something that is not good, because at the end of sprint it may occur that all of our work will need to be streamlined to this guy's capacity, and at the end it may occur that okay, we're not gonna make it, we'll not deliver what we planned. So the team as a whole need to plan how they want to deliver the scope, or actually how they want to achieve the goal that you haven't named. It has a name. It's a sprint goal, a business objective for the next iteration that we want to achieve. It's perfect if this goal is defined in a smart way. I believe that everyone knows what a smart goal. If not, you can Google it, SMART. But it doesn't have to be it's great if it's smart, but it don't have to be. Okay, so we have this planning. Then we run the sprint, but maybe before the planning, like there is something that we missed here. Like we haven't mentioned. Okay, we mentioned, but we haven't described that in details. What is the product backlog?
Product backlog, yeah. That's
like all of these things are not happening in void. In the void, it doesn't work that way. That like ideas came from clouds, so some space, and people are just working on that. It's also a work that someone, usually the product owner, but perfectly if the product owner together with the team have to perform the work on the requirements that are described in the product backlog. So what is the product?
Yeah, the product backlog is like in the definition is the ordered list of things which need to be done, and it exists before the cycle starts. Yeah, we can say that we feed the sprint with the backlog. It's product backlog. We feed the sprint backlog, and we can begin work. So that's something we don't look during the team. Maybe product owner, yes, but team only one point in the entire Scrum cycle we're looking at is product backlog, but the cycles is about the sprint backlog. So this artifact, the product backlog, as I said, is ordered list of things which needs to be done. There is the granularity is there. So when we think about if we know more about this kind of task or user story or product backlog item, it should be higher. So it gives you like, okay, I'm able to deliver it because I know already a lot about this. If not, then it's in the bottom of the backlog. And of course, there's
but actually it's not that's not the way you should order the backlog. It's actually when you have an ordered list of items, it's a product backlog already. And despite the details that we have in each item, the order comes from the business objective, and
then this is the second thing, because there's also the priorities, which are actually the work of the product owner to decide about. But of course, when you look at the priorities, and in a fight perspective, looking down, the things we know more about are higher than the things we.
At least we try to add more details to the things that are on the top of the backlog, and that process of adding the details is called
refinement.
Backlog refinement.
Exactly, and this is the one of the event at which actually the entire team looking at the product backlog during the sprint. So this is the kind of assumption, or there is like a strategic plan in which we know that the very high probability that these things which are in the top of the backlog will be the next things which we're gonna do, and we need to discover everything about this before we go and deliver it, because if not, then there will be a lot of risk that maybe we miss something and we will not be able to deliver that.
And like for me, backlog refinement is usually the first thing to came to my mind when I see that the team, for example, struggle during the sprint planning, or especially when I see that the team during the sprint review says that, okay, we delivered only 60-70% of what we planned. That usually, or I would say even in the most cases, means that they haven't done enough backlog refinement. In an old version of the Scrum Guide, it was written that the team should use at least 10% of their, at most 10% of their capacity on the backlog refinement. As far as I know, in the current version, there is no limit. Like they should do the refinement as much as it's needed to actually the process to work on, to work good. And this is something that if you are already working with Scrum and if you are struggling with your sprint planning, sprint review, you're struggling with delivering what you promised or committed to during the sprint planning, most probably you are not doing enough backlog refinement, and or you are not doing it correctly. So maybe let's talk a little bit more how to perform correct backlog refinement correctly. What does it mean? You said it's an event. I would say it's a process.
It's a process. Of course, sometimes people need some time to sit together. But of course, each individual member can sit with something and do it like offline from the team, and then like share the knowledge with the team at some meeting.
It's actually like a research, requirements analysis, like those are the things that
exactly. But at the end of the day, we need a kind of product owner who give us some context on the this backlog item which we're gonna refine. So we need to understand, like a team need to understand why they need to do this. What is actually input? Because sometimes we have to deliver, let's say, some user interface. So we need some design. We need to know how it should be planned in front before we begin to decide how big is it, if we can deliver it, and what need to be done to deliver it. So, as I said, we need some input. This input comes from different things, like from the technical research from the team, from the business perspective, so the product owner delivers that, from the UX designer.
Not necessarily product owner, like product owner
That's right, but
is responsible for that.
Is responsible,
but at the end of the day, it may be done by any team member who actually, for example, talk to the stakeholders or talk to some domain experts, business domain experts in the organization or outside the organization, or do some research, I don't know, desk research or something like this.
Of course, and it can happen that during the process, these team members becomes domain experts, and they all.
That's also a learning process, learning about the domain, and so yeah, I believe that what you started from, that Scrum is about learning.
Yeah.
I believe that's completely true. That the team, the people can also learn the domain when they work on it in the more structured way, not in a chaotic way that, okay, we just, there is some information. No, backlog refinement is also a process of learning or gaining information about what we are doing, why we are doing this, and often it's even discovering things that no one in the organization knew about before.
Yeah, absolutely. But I believe that the product owner, him or herself, is actually needed during the refinement sometimes, because the main reason the product owner, according to the Scrum guide, is that the person who had this role maximize the value. And sometimes, there's a problem. Technically, there's a lot of opportunities to deliver or solve this problem. But sometimes, if teams doesn't understand, because the developers mostly want to deliver very good quality things, that's fine. But of course, there is kind of, if we need to do it with this cost, maybe we can deliver something which give us hint and maximize the value of the product quickly, and we can learn quicker. So we can deliver it in 3 days, not in 2 weeks, something like that.
So that's mainly the product. We'll discuss it in a moment. Like we are going there.
I believe that the refinement process itself is something which Scrum teams likes, because they can like autonomously decide and think. This is like the process of thinking, critical thinking about the problem which nobody solved yet, for example, and you have ability to deliver it for a new way. And it's fantastic. The team learns, the team discussing, so the culture is creating during this, like this cooperation in team improve the morale. And at the end, all of them, when they find all these inputs, they meet together, they find the solution. They like understand the problem, and they understand better the business and the goal which they're going actually.
Mm-hmm.
So
increases the motivation.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Anyone who is running a startup, and if you are struggling with your team's motivation, there are no better perks like free fruits in the kitchen and other stuff. It never replaced the understanding of the business of the product and the motivation that came from being a part of something that I feel is important for for me personally.
So remember, like have a whiteboard with some pens, coffee, and discuss the problem. And usually it works like when you support the team, give them the problem, they will pay off with commit themselves to solve this problem for you. So that's important in startups, I believe.
Okay, so backlog refinement is a process where we trying to add some details to the requirements that are on the product backlog, and usually we are focusing on the product backlog items, functionalities, features that are on the top of the product backlog, because the order of the product backlog came from the priority, business objective, other stuff. The product backlog is actually a description of how or the, maybe not description, the ideas of how we are going to achieve something that also should be defined in Scrum, which is a product goal. Maybe you can tell at least more about the product goal.
Yeah, and I mean, on top of what we say about the product backlog, this is also list which is very strange for anyone who heard it first time. This never ends, because we believe that our products never end. Even we deliver it to the market evolves and the product evolves with the market. So we will continuously adding things to the backlog because we discover new ideas, new needs in our user, in our market. Maybe we will see an opportunity to move to another market, and it's also open the backlog for new items and so on. And that's difficult because if you not like have kind of skills to manage it well, it will explode because your backlog will rise and be too big to be manageable. And this is the role of the product owner or product manager to like keep hand on it and maximize the product. That for me means as well manage your backlog well. So decide with the business what don't need to be done. So that is like opposite. People said, "Oh, this business is about what we can done," but in a backlog, what we don't need to be done to deliver what you actually promise to the market.
Yeah, to achieve this product goal, like we define what we are going to, not what we are going to build. We define what our product is going to do for its users, and what value we add to the users' day-to-day life. Whoever the users are, whatever the product is, you need to have a product goal. And then the product backlog is the list of potential functionalities that we can some opportunity we can, but we don't have to do all of them to actually achieve this product goal or move us closer to this product goal, and actually increase the value that we deliver to our customers, to our users. We can define a product backlog as a description of this product goal, the composition of the product goal. As you mentioned, it never ends, like it's infinite, and we can always add some things to the product backlog, but actually the role of a product owner or product manager is to cut down the number of requirements to the absolute minimum, or actually order it in a way that we will find the shortest path to achieve or move ourselves closer to achieving this product goal.
There's always things which can be done, but that costs for the startups, for the clients, and the role of the product owner is also like to minimize the risk. We run out of the money before we deliver what we promise, and we get a tracking, and we begin this entrepreneurship journey actually. So it's like the maximization of the product value means also to me like minimizing the risk that we will not deliver this product value. So this kind of
also idea that's very important for everyone who is watching us today, that if you have some classical corporate project management background and you try to build your startup in the same way, that you have well-defined scope, timeline, budget, some quality requirements, and you believe that that's exactly what you need to build to satisfy your users, most probably, I would say that 100%, but maybe 98-ish%, you are wrong. You don't know what your users actually need. You need to ask them, but not only ask them, but actually show them, give it the next versions of your product, and that way you will learn what they actually need. If you want to spend all of your budget or majority of your budget on your fixed price, fixed budget, fixed scope project, most probably you will lose most of this money. Some part of that might be reusable later on, but you can and most probably if you don't want to waste some money, you have to make it in a different way. And Scrum is one of the frameworks that help us that is much more actually cheaper. Yeah. So this is why we decided to use Scrum together with our clients. The entire topic of the project management versus product management, project approach, old waterfall approach to building, especially startups and product management approach, product-led companies using, for example, Scrum and other agile methods or lean methods to building a product for startups. That deserves the totally different episode. So
A serious meeting.
yeah, or even a series, because that's a series that's a very wide topic, and we can talk about it for an hours. We already mentioned what is the product backlog. You mentioned there is something like a sprint backlog.
Yeah.
That is created during the sprint planning. Yeah. So
emerge from the product backlog. So these are things which are picked up by the team, which they believe they can, when they deliver it, they will achieve the goals of the sprint. Yeah. So that is what we close in the sprint backlog, and we focus. This is one of the value of the
habit mentioned, I believe, at the very beginning. Revenue and checkout. Yeah. You mentioned 4, but
we focus, and this is like we focus now. The team is focused on this delivering on this small piece of the product backlog, which they understand best, which they know how it linked to the goal, so they can, increase the engagement and they deliver it much faster, because they have no disruption on from the outside. So it's like that's why we have the sprints. Yeah, we have this time when we can focus on the goal, we can focus on a plan, we can focus on the value. We continuously think and check, inspect it during the daily, as we discussed previously. So we are trying to find the optimum way to deliver is as soon as possible during this iteration.
Yeah, I always try to describe sprint as a box. Team is inside of the box, and no one from the outside world is disturbing them. So there is like plenty of processes that happen around the team, but no one should. Of course, there might be some emergency or other stuff, but no one should interrupt the team during the work, so they could focus on that. And even in a very chaotic and very emerging environment, they could focus, and then they could actually perform on the highest level and deliver value to the organization, to the users. Of course, the team could reach to other people from their box to the real world. Let's call it that way. But the other way around, it shouldn't be done or should be minimalized if you want to have the team that is performing well. So this is also why Scrum is very good for startups, but not only for startups, maybe for most of the contemporary product development endeavors. Even in the very emerging, very fast-changing environment like startups, we can still perform, we can still have this inspect and adaptation loops inside of the team. Okay, you already mentioned another event that we haven't described before in details, Daily Scrum.
Yeah, Daily Scrum. You mentioned it before that this is the third small loop which happen every day. Maybe like from generic perspective, when you look at these pillars I mentioned, like the transparency, adaptation, and inspection, it happened in all these events actually, in different composition, but it happened everywhere, and it also happened during the sprint daily. And the sprint daily is just like continuous check if we are on a good track to deliver the sprint goal. And this is the problem here, because people, most time I'm discussing it with the people, they don't understand it. And I heard that people think about like, okay, during the daily I'm just saying what I did yesterday, what I am doing today, and that's all I'm saying. So this is a quick meeting, but it's not about saying what I did and what I will do, because I believe that all this information are already in a sprint backlog, so we can look at this and we don't need to speak at all about this stuff. We have to meet there at this daily to quickly see if nothing happened which actually prevent us from delivering the sprint goal. something will happen. Some of the team member can feel sick and cannot deliver something. We learn something during the process which we missed during the refinement. It could happen, and we have to address it quickly.
Or some other things change, or I know there was some emergency or some production issue that we need to fix.
Yeah. That all things influence and can impact on the delivering the goal on which the team commit at the sprint planning. So that should be the core of discussion. Okay, so this is our sprint goal. Let's sit around the sprint goal and discuss what we can do to be there on time or quicker if possible. For me, this it's like very micro planning. On the planning, we're planning entire sprint. On a daily, we're planning next 24 hours. But it's a planning. Okay, I have to go today to do this stuff. I have to check this one. I have to call to the DevOps to check something. And how we do it efficiently to not block each other and deliver something and have a progress.
Or even if we could cooperate on something, because like do some pair programming, or maybe there are some more complex features, items that we can work together, not interrupting each other, but to achieve better results, make it faster, etc. So I really like when I see during the daily, if the team members are, as you mentioned, planning their work together. And if that happens, I am convinced that they are working as a team, not as a group of individuals where everyone is focused on their list of tasks and other stuff.
That's kind of So that's not my problem that anyone will not perform well. So due to different reasons. Yeah, so that's actually so the daily. It's a very quick meeting. It should cost like 15 minutes every day. Because but we don't want to spend more because it's like to spot the problem. If we spot it and it is require more meetings, then we plan. So maybe not all of the team members are required for discussing it. So we don't want to waste the time of the people which can work efficiently with the task they have already. But if there's someone who can help with some issues, for example, then we can let's discuss it after the daily. But everyone knows what the situation is. So that's also the transparency. Which are actually showing up on this moment. So that's actually this daily, and everything actually from the small event like a daily to the big like a planning, everything is important. As we mentioned at the beginning, it's not like you can do proper Scrum without daily. You can do for a while, and after some time, things which are not addressed on the daily will kick you, and there will be a very big problem I believe.
Okay, so we already described all of the Scrum meetings, like a sprint planning, sprint review, sprint retrospective, daily Scrum, a process of refinement. We described the artifacts, like a product backlog, sprint backlog. We haven't mentioned definition of done.
Yeah,
which is pretty important, and I believe that this is something that also many teams forget about.
The definition of done is kind of, we can say it's just checklist. Sometimes we can describe it like that, but it's emerged from the experiences of the good practices for the products and from the experiences of the team members. Definition of done can query, this is an abstract for every item in the backlog. So when we deliver anything from the product backlog or sprint backlog, it should pass the definition of done. And it's like
if it doesn't, it means that we haven't delivered.
We haven't delivered. It's not there. I mean, it's not potentially
reusable.
Yeah, reusable product. It's just something we code and nobody can use it from different reasons. And then this definition of done is like the check of the quality for me, that all the process which we done assure that the end what we deliver it provides value. If not, if we forget to do, let's say, one of the part of the definition of done will be like our code passed the automation tests. If not, then there's potential risk that during the when we deploy it and business will use it and it will be broken, and let's say client will not pay for that, or there will be potential miss in the business. A lot of things could happen. But yeah, that is the process, and the process is set at the beginning. because the people have already some experience, they have some requirements, for example. So they define this together, the Scrum team. But when they learn the process, when they learn how the business work, they can expand this definition of done, and it can happen anytime. But if it's not very impactful, I would say that most people think about it during the retrospective because it's a kind of the process. We observe that normally when we're going through the process, definition of done become more and more sophisticated because we think we more and more about quality. Let's say there's more complex process, there is more users, we have to be more careful. So our definition of done is better, but as I said, more sophisticated than at the beginning. It's a normal process. When we forget that, we can fall very easily into the trap that we have to fix a lot of bugs and we will not deliver any value. That's it.
Yeah, so I always like to tell that definition of done is the definition of the quality of things that we deliver, but also it's some kind of like a like you have this gates on the airports that we go through during the check-in. That it's like if there are some bugs or some problems or some issues, you will not get into the airport. You will not fly to the production in this case. So this is very important. This is also actually the point where we added transparency to what we deliver and how much we are able to deliver during the sprint. Like I've seen so many times that teams deliver like 60% or 50% of what they planned, and another 50% is almost done. I always ask them, so show me your definition of almost done, and they said no, we have only definition of done. So maybe next time, like try to take less for the iteration. First of all, go back to the refinement and try to do better refinement, more refinement, but even spend more time on that, so you will have less capacity in the next iteration, and you will take less. But let's assume that for example they have like 10 items, they delivered 5 that are done and 5 that are almost done. And usually I find, okay, so next iteration, try to take 6 and deliver 6. In the next iteration, try to take 7 and deliver 7. And usually after 3 iterations, they are able to deliver 10 or 11, and then in the next iteration, 12, 15, etc. So they're improving only because they understood how to make things done and how to better align the process to how they work, and better to cooperate to each other, because they generate this a little bit of slack time that they can actually think instead of doing.
That's what we are teaching actually people here in Pragmatic Coders, that because everyone who do some coding or whatever work, if it's not finished, but this person feel that I spent amount of hours, but I haven't finished, but let's say 80% is finished, they feel that this is very valuable, but we have to think that we're not doing for ourselves, that for our clients, for our users. And if it's not delivered yet, there's no value.
There's no value if it's not on production.
Yeah, there's no value. And of course, we can think, okay, that's 80% done. We do this last 20% next sprint. But discussing about that during the review, for example, that we deliver 50% done and 50 almost done. This 15 almost done doesn't have any value for the client.
Actually, even discussing it during the sprint review is a waste of time. So please never ever do that.
Exactly.
Like during sprint review, we are discussing things that are only done. Not almost done. Like that doesn't make any point. Okay, so we are talking about them. Who are them? Scrum team. And what are the 3 roles in the Scrum team? And shortly, because we can like run another episode for each of this role, but
sure.
Short.
So according to the Scrum guide, there is 3 roles. There is like product owner, Scrum Master, and let's say developers. But I prefer to say makers, because that not only developers deliver values during the sprint. So makers, Scrum Master, and product owner. So that's 3 roles which actually cooperate together to provide the value.
Roles, or recently it's called accountabilities, which maybe even better describe the meaning of what it is actually.
What they do, okay.
Yeah.
So I would say that this is we have to remember that the Scrum teams are autonomous teams. So there's not like a hierarchy here. There's no like, it could be that some of the person have some leadership skills, and these leadership skills help the team to achieve the goals. That's fine. But there is no like I can tell you you have to do this. It's not.
I am the technical manager that is inside of the team, and I assign the task to everyone. Maybe if it works, but I believe it might work to some extent. But I believe that cross-functional autonomous teams usually are much better, and by much better I mean like a couple times better in terms of the performance than the teams that are micromanaged by managers.
They are much more empowered, so they can think out of the box without any pressure.
One thing here, like as we mentioned at the beginning, like Scrum is a framework. There are some frames, and this autonomy happen only inside of these frames. It's not like it's not anarchy. This autonomy, it's not an anarchy that everyone do whatever they want. There are some strict rules that everyone is working according to, and this is how and why it works. It's not anarchy.
Yeah, and we always say that like autonomous or freedom comes with responsibility. So these people have to be responsible what they promise, what they decide to deliver during the sprint planning. So that's all these things are about the sprint Scrum values, which we discussed already. But if we think about 3 roles, like the product owner thinks about what is the right product, how to maximize it to deliver the best possible value. On the other hand, the developer or makers thinks how to do these things right, how to deliver proper quality, so definition of don't have to be fulfilled, and the good technology, whatever. They use all the skills to decide about us. And the third person is like I would say in between, trying to discussing with all these 2 roles, so makers and product owner, how to do it efficiently. Sometimes in some
actually teaching the team or helping you, supporting.
That's that kind of stuff. And I like the word efficiency, because sometimes I heard that we said that Scrum Master working that they do work faster. I don't agree with that, because fast is not agility. They have to do it efficiently. So do it, of course, because we are efficient. Sometimes we do things faster. That's normal. But the doing faster is not the aim of being Scrum Master.
We can deliver 6 times faster things that no one will use, for example.
So when we focus on the outcome, we can deliver a lot, but with no value. For example. And these 3 roles, they cooperate together. So the Scrum Master teaching, trying to support the team with the problems, and to establish good processes, for example. Processes for product owner, processes for makers.
I always say that the Scrum Master is mainly a teacher, a person whose only responsibility is to teach others how to use Scrum properly, and to teach everything what is needed for that. Like some teams will require another skills, another knowledge. Like for example, let's say the product owner is not experienced, so Scrum Master would have to focus more on on teaching the product owner or helping her or him to learn the new product management skills, tools, whatever. Some teams will lack some technical knowledge, so the Scrum Master will have to assure that the correct learning process of the technicalities, technical skills or quality or whatever will be there. Or Scrum Master have to teach the team how to make a space, make a room for teaching, for learning. Like for example, the example that I mentioned, that the team takes 10 items to each sprint, that you're only 5, and decreasing this amount to, let's say, 5 or the 6 in the sprint, and forcing the team or teaching the team that let's do this. I'm teaching by the Scrum Master. Let's try this experiment next iteration. That creates a space for accelerated learning, problem solving, thinking. And this is the main role of a Scrum Master.
That's we call him or her master. Because that's sometimes because we are focusing on the work, like on technology or on the business side, like the product owner, we tend to forget about some good practices, and the Scrum Master is like the guardian. Okay, let's do it more transparent. If you don't do this transparent, your work will not provide value that actually can work against you. So yeah, this cooperation is crucial. I mean, the team need to respect. So this also respect one of the Scrum value each other, and learn continuously. That's the actually the most important for Scrum, to learn together, empower team.
I believe it's worth to mention that at Pragmatic Coders we do things slightly differently. Since many organizations they are hiring a Scrum Master as a full-time job. In our case, Scrum Masters are just the developers who are trained in performing this role as a part of their daily duties. I believe it's mainly possible because aside of a Scrum Master, we have like a Scrum training process that everyone who is working for us in their first months are going through, and this part of the teaching is the system solution that we implemented at Pragmatic Coders, so everyone is on the same page, everyone read the Scrum Guide 16 pages, so everyone is on the same 16 pages in the same book. So that simplified the role of the Scrum Master, but of course in many organizations where this kind of system approach doesn't exist, in many organizations that do not have so skilled product owners, product managers as we do, the Scrum Master job might be a full-time job, and that cost might be the cost of the full-time person of this role, and usually experts are not cheap. And I wouldn't recommend to hire a junior Scrum Master if you don't have any senior Scrum Masters around who could work with such a person. So that cost could be justified in the organizations that do not have this all knowledge on board. In our case, it's much simpler, since Pragmatic Coders from the very first day was designed as the agile company, and the Scrum was something that we came to as a main way of doing things in the entire company. Even right now in the marketing and HR department, we are using Scrum. And that works perfectly. Even for the management, we use, I wouldn't say Scrum, but something that is pretty close to Scrum. Okay, so I believe we went through all of the Scrum aspects. Like, we started with values and pillars. Then we explained that Scrum is a framework. Then Scrum is the empirical decision-making approach. We went through all of the events, starting from sprint review, then sprint retrospective, then sprint planning, and that order of description, I believe it wasn't a random order. We did this on purpose. We also discussed product backlog refinement, which is a process. We also discussed the daily Scrum, the smallest learning loop in the Scrum cycle. We talk what is the product backlog. We talk what is the sprint backlog. We also went through all of the three roles, like Scrum Master, Product Owner, and developers or makers, as you call it. We also spoke about the definition of that. And actually, I believe that's it. That's the entire Scrum framework. So let's try to wrap up all of the things together and try to let's try to describe once again, why do we think that maybe not every, but most of the startups and startup founders should consider using Scrum as the way their team works? Maybe not the startup founders, maybe CTOs, maybe product managers or CPO at startup, VP of product, whatever you call it. Why people who are responsible for the process, for the technology of the company, such as startups, should consider using Scrum?
Yeah, probably there will be a huge list of reasons, I believe, but let's say focus on most important for me.
Mm-hmm.
Building startups is very intensive experience. You have to give 100% or 200% of yourself, your time, to deliver something and this happened for a couple of months sometimes, and you don't have guaranteed success. You could fall. The different reason why, it's not because of the Scrum, sometimes just the market. During this process, there's a lot of emotion and a lot of decision which needs to be made quickly, and because of this emotion and decision making intensity, if you just decide from your head, let's say, you could fall with the decisions which have no argument behind it. So you just decide because of your feelings.
Data.
Yeah, exactly. And then, as we discussed here, the Scrum is based on empirical approach. So everything that we learn and when we observe is like documented in some behavior data metrics. It helps a lot to the founders to make them very good decisions, much better than based on the feelings, good feelings. Especially in a situation where it will be very difficult. Let's say you are run quickly out of the money, or you have to decide something because something has changed on the market. The structure of the Scrum help you to like focus on something. You see the metrics, you see the learning curve. You have support on your team, experts from different technologies, from the business like product owner. All of these just give you a lot of uplift in your decision. So that's for me is the most important aspect for the Scrum. Like a Scrum is good for startup. Other things is like I believe that the startups is also kind of process of learning. If you learn, let's say, use the tool which also allow you to learn efficiently. And as we probably we already discussed it, and I believe that's true, that the Scrum is a framework which based on learning process. So it fits, to me, it seems like it fits correctly into this niche where I think about the startups. Startups need to learn quickly. Scrum allows to learn quickly. So let's merge these two words, and they should empower each other and give some positive value. That's my opinion.
Perfect. I believe that one thing that is worth to mention here is that from my experience, from the experience of people whom I talk to, there is a huge risk in startups that people tend to burn out because of the chaotic environment, fast-paced working, etc. And we haven't spoke about it, but this stable pace, this stable cadence, iterations in Scrum, this framework, this structure that as you call it, this is something that even in the very demanding environment, startup environment, a very chaotic and fast-changing environment, this is something that is a good foundation for people to actually work in the stable pace, so they are not burning out. At least not as fast if they are not using Scrum, because of course, usually people who are motivated, as we also mentioned before, like the Scrum also enforce or enhance the motivation of a team if it's done correctly, if people are involved in the business decisions, if they are doing enough of backlog refinement, if they have access to the all of the stakeholders, etc. They are way more motivated, and thanks to this framework, people are learning faster, and they are working more and more efficiently with every iteration. And they are reading about the product, about the business domain, etc. They are way more motivated, way more satisfied by the job that they perform. And at the end of the day, they are less fatigued, or they are not burning out from the work as fast as people usually do in startups. I believe that's concluded our discussion about this graph. So thank you very much, Darek, for joining me together. And I'm pretty sure that we'll record another episodes about all of the things that we skipped today and that are worth to mention. So please stay tuned. And don't forget to subscribe to our channels. Pragmatic Talks is delivered to you by Pragmatic Coders, the first choice software development partners for startup founders. Be sure to catch all new episodes. Subscribe to our YouTube, Spotify or Apple Podcast channels. And if you are thinking about building your own startup or struggling with product development, contact us and find out what we can do together.